Good morning, my darlings, and how is your day? I hope it's as good as mine. I've just spent the last 2 hours cleaning up cat puke. Lucky me. Let me just turn this. It's not quite at the right angle. There. So much better. I can see you clearly, my lovelies. Oh, yes. So anyway, Monty has decided he thought it best to redecorate. This is what happens when you feed biscuits. He doesn't, I don't think they agree with him. The eldest child owes me a beer. I'm not happy. I'm a very unhappy mummy right now, but I have got it out of the carpet. Oh, what a morning. Well, as it suggests, let's talk horror. Let's talk horror books. As we have learned this week from John Carpenter's lecture, horror comes from within and without. The surrounding areas, the fear of the unknown, the scariness that is the bump in the night. Shall we talk about one of my favourite subjects, James Herbert? I could talk about him all day. I'm thinking about when he wrote The Fog. And bearing in mind, when he was writing this, it was in long form and then on a typewriter. Because obviously, at this point in our lives, computers weren't really a thing. So kudos to the writers of the 1970s and their typewriters and their long form and jotter pads. And I just think how blessed we are now that we've got Grammarly, we've got computers, we've got hard drives, we can just instantly pop it up on a screen in front of us, go back, delete a little bit and change it. Oh my goodness me. The writer of the 1970s, I bet they would have loved that luxury. Which makes me think that the work that was produced back then is all the more precious simply because they had much less to work with. But didn't they have vibrant imaginations? And the art, don't get me going on the artists and the front and the book covers. My goodness me. I've always said that the artwork on the front of the book, of the novel, is just as important as the content on the inside. The two work hand in hand. I think somewhere down the line, as we were heading into the 1990s and into the year 2000, something has gone missing. Something is lost. I look at book covers now, and I'm not afraid to say I am uninspired. I want it to jump off the shelf and say, you have to take me home. You have to have me. I am your number one purchase today. And that is based on artwork alone. Who, right? Classic example, the giant rat on the rats, right? The paperback version. Yeah, from 1976, July 1976. That's what the edition that I have, which was 3 months after I was born, right? A giant money-in rat. Yeah. There on the front cover. Or another one of James's classics is The Fog, right? The original just had The Fog written on it, which was great, but it didn't exactly give you an idea of what was in there. Roll on to the 1980s and the severed head with the white of the eyes showing and the blood pouring out of the neck. Now, give me some of that. Yeah. That is what I'm on about something grabbing you visually. You're going to pick it up. You're going to say, oh, blimey, that looks good. You pick it up and you read it and you think, oh, yes, please. We are at the races. And that's what's missing from today's books. We've got original writers out there that are doing an absolutely brilliant job in conveying a story to us. But you're not going to sell your books, boys and girls, unless you've got excellent artwork. And I'm hoping that we're going to start to see a trend going back to how horror books were. I know it was a time, the 1970s and the 1980s, was an absolute golden era in the United Kingdom and America for fantastic fiction, horror books. 85p, 95p when they came out back in the day. And a John Halkin, right, can set you back 50 quid to 100 quid, right, just because it's rare and you're getting a classic piece of artwork as well as a classic piece of literature. And you wouldn't think that a simple paperback that 85 pence was worth between 50 and 100 pounds. And that's if you can actually get hold of a copy. I know I've got some collections upstairs. Richard Lewis, Spiders, right? And that book came out, I think it was 85p. At most, it was £1, right? To get that book now, the last time I saw it for sale on eBay, and it was in an auction, and I think it was costing on around about £50 when I was looking at the bids that were going in for it. And at every sort of 20-30 seconds, another bid was coming through, and I left it when it was costing around about the £50 mark, and it still had a few days to go. And I think it eventually went for £75, just a paperback. Richard Lewis, Spiders. And the other one that's even harder to get hold of, which is written as a sequel, and it's set 5 years later in Kent. If you can get it, if you can ever find it, because it's so rare, is The Web by Richard Lewis. And if you've got a copy of that, and I mean even a beat up copy, I've seen advertised for about £80, and its front cover was torn, right? And there were people bidding on that, and I can't actually physically remember what it went for in the end. It was only a few weeks ago. I'll have to go back onto my eBay account and see if I can find it and see what it went for. I mean, I I couldn't even afford to look at it, let alone put a bid in. But the prices of 1970s and 1980s horror, New English Library, Pan, Star, Pan Macmillan, that's the one I'm thinking of. They and Star Publishings. Star Publishings was with Sean Hudson, and New English Library was with James. And it's the quality and the rarity of the book. The rarer the book and the better quality it is, the better price you can command. I often think of Stanley Johnson, Boris Johnson's dad, who wrote a book called The Marburg Virus. It was re-released in 2020 as The Virus. I've done a review on this. It's a typical late 1970s, early 1980s disaster pandemic novel. Brilliantly written. What would you call it? A bonk buster. They're either fighting off the mercenaries, having a good time, or worrying about who's next going to have the virus. How far has the virus spread? Who caused the virus to spread? And how do they stop it? And true to form, there is the devilishly handsome gentleman come scientist and hero, all-round hero, and the femme fatale who is like, I love you, I love you, I love you. Let's go save the world, darling. Classic. You can't. It's just such a typical book for the 1970s. And Stanley Johnson wrote it so well. I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, but it's not who you think it is. Right? That's the only clue I'm going to give you. Right? Which sounds a little bit, you really do need to read it. So if you've got a copy of the Marburg virus, which is what it was originally posted, I'm thinking online. When it was originally published, it was the Marburg virus with like a monkey on the front. It's so rare. I've seen copies of that book when I've seen them, right, which is about a good year or so ago now. And it wasn't a very good copy. It was water damaged. It had, like somebody had spilt coffee on it, or poured a kind of Coke in it or something. And they wanted over £500 for this copy, and it's that rare. People will pay it. They are so rare. It's, if you're a purist and you have to have it saying the Marburg virus, and it has to go in your collection, or if you're like me and you just manage to find it, the virus, and I bought mine. I must have spent £25 just to get the copy of the virus one. And I think when it was sold, it was only like a tenner. About £9.99, I think it was. Not hardback, but It's a good job I can get things in large print because my eyesight's not what it used to be. I love my new English library books, but I have to put my spectacles on now to go and try and read them. Because, I'm knocking on. And my eyesight's not what it was. Yeah, so, if you get a copy of the Marburg virus, wow. It's the same with Robert McCammon's Swan Song. Phenomenal, right? I don't know if it's still in print or if they're going to be redoing a print run, because apparently they're going to be turning it into a TV miniseries. Oh dear Lord. Oh, I hope they do. I'm praying for that. If you've not heard of Swan Song, we are dealing with a little girl called Susan Wonder, or has her nickname Swan. And she's a very special little girl with very magical powers. But she doesn't know that at the beginning of the book. If you didn't think it was bad enough that she's growing up in an environment which, quite frankly, the Child Prosecution Service would have removed her had they had the chance. Unfortunately, nuclear war breaks out. And it's about Swan's survival in the brand new world. And she is being protected by in a former life, this gentleman was known as Black Frankenstein, and he was a world famous wrestler. He was a sports hero, if you like. He was a famous celebrity. And it just so happens that just before nuclear war broke out, Swan happens to be with her mother at a convenience store that the character Black Frankenstein goes to en route to another venue to do some wrestling, some professional wrestling. And while they're conversing with the shopkeeper, the ground opens up very close to the shop, and out shoot ICBMs, an average occurrence on a normal day. And whoosh, off they go, and their target is Russia. And naturally so, the ones in Russia, the target is the USA. Nuclear war ensues. Half the world dies. And the rest of the world has got to cope with the aftermath of what happens next. And we go on an epic saga across America with the man with the scarlet eye, who is the devil, who wants to annihilate the entire world. And the only way he can do this is by finding the President of the United States and convincing him to release talons. And what talons is, you'll just have to find out, because you're just going to have to read the book. And on the bad side, we've got Colonel Macklin, Roland Croninger, who's the most despotic, psychotic, idiotic, any other erotic I can think of is our Roland. He's one messed up teenager. He is a classic example of a child that's never been told no. His mum and dad were avid survivalists, And our Roland and his mum and dad were en route to a nuclear survival bunker for their timeshare week. And we're going to check out the bunker after they'd spent an awful lot of money securing, the ability to actually live there with other survivee wannabes. And the whole unit was run by an ex-Air Force colonel, Colonel Macklin, who, how can I describe Colonel Macklin? Dedicated to his job in the Air Force, but clearly he's middle-aged, he's overweight, he's not as physically able as he used to be, but he's hanging on to his glory days of being an American Air Force colonel. Yeah, Colonel Macklin. And he just happens to be one of the survivors from the nuclear shelter, which was shoddily built, by the way, and didn't even, you could have farted and the thing would have fallen over, right? It was that poorly built. And when nuclear war breaks out, he just happens to be in the bunker along with Roland Croninger and Roland's parents. And this is how messed up Roland is. Roland watched his own mother burn to death and didn't lift a finger to help her. And his dad, I think his dad got killed instantly with a pillar or something landed on his head. Or he might have been trapped. And anyway, again, Roland just like, parents, whatever. He couldn't have given two Fs, right, whether or not his parents lived or died. And he just so happened to be in an air shaft. He crawled into an air shaft and happened upon Colonel Macklin. I believe that's how they found each other. It's a while since I've read the book. And Colonel Macklin sort of takes him under his wing and decides to teach him all he knows about survival. And between him and the Colonel, they create something called the AOE, which stands for the Army of Excellence. And the Army of Excellence and what's left of the American populace with battle trucks, and assuming that there is gallons and gallons of petrol still around and available to use and hasn't gone off, are roving across the United States of America and are part of the baddies, right? I would say misery loves company, and if you're in the Army of Excellence, you're going to get it in bucket loads. I don't think there's anybody that joins that regiment willingly. They are either poor little outlying villages and towns, and the Army of Excellence rolls on in. It's like Mad Max on steroids, and you either do it Roland's way or no way. So our Roland, yeah, he is one Fruit Loop missing from a box of cereal, and he doesn't think that there's anything wrong with him. Now, also, while we are going on our Odyssey of America, the people who are the survivors suddenly start to get these fungal growths on their face, and Robert McCammon calls them Job. the Mask of Job. It's a religious thing. Yeah, you'll know who Job is from the Bible. And anyway, they all have these masks of Job, this like fungal growth all around the face. And Swan's got one. Her protector, Frankenstein's got one. And Roland's got one, and Colonel Macklin's got one, and loads of other characters. Sister Creep's got one. I haven't told you about Sister Creep yet. She's on the good side, and she has a very special ring made of glass and plastic. And this ring can make magical things happen. And when she eventually finds Swan, after years of searching for her, bearing in mind when all this kicks off, Swan's a teeny tiny little girl, and when Sister Creep finds her with her companions many years later, Swan's now a teenager. And anyway, this ring, Sister Creep uses it on Swan, and her mask falls off. And underneath the mask is the most beautiful girl the world has ever seen. And she is blessed with magical powers of healing. And it's Swan's destiny, if you like. She is the chosen one to bring life back to planet Earth after it's been annihilated by nuclear warheads. All right, but she has the power to bring trees back, and she can grow food just by touching the seed and the ground. She's that magical. Anyway, everybody's masks fall off when hers falls off. It's as though she's like the healing power of Jesus is this young girl. And all the masks fall off the baddies as well. And what you have underneath when everybody's masks fall off is the true form of the person that's underneath. And let's just say you'd be wanting that Roland had stayed on. Colonel Macklin has has retained some of his humanity. But our Roland has none of that. It's when you look at Roland, he keeps like a shield over his face. He won't let anybody see his face, because if you were to see it, you'd see the devil himself looking right back at you. He has soulless eyes and such a disfigured face that it's pure nightmare fuel, right? You wouldn't want to look at it for long. Crikey, he'd break his own mirror, let alone anybody else's. And he's in league with the man with the scarlet eye, who has found himself winding towards the army of excellence and is in dire need of wanting to take it over. And it's an epic battle between good and evil. And it's whether or not the man with the scarlet eye gets to the president first, or will Swan and Black Frankenstein and Sister Creep and all the other people that are there to protect Swan and the world, we'll get to the president first. It's who gets there first, and whether or not talons will be released. And it's just absolutely epic. There is one character that I just wish more had been done with him, and it's Lord Alvin, right? Lord Alvin of the supermarket. And I mean, I'm not being awful, right? But if you're in the middle of a nuclear wasteland, right, everything's been blown to bits, and you come across a fully stocked supermarket with the lights still on and everything like a supermarket should be, but it's like the only thing left, and everything else around it is just like blown to pieces. Wouldn't you be slightly suspicious and be like, this does not look right? But not our intrepid trio. Oh no, they were going in with a full-on list to do the weekly shop. And that's where we meet Lord Alvin, who makes Del Winton and the supermarket sweep look positively child's play. Because you see, if you don't get to the end of the aisle before Lord Alvin's disciples do, off with your head. Yes. Exactly. And Lord Alvin is residing over this in his makeshift throne of supermarket trolleys, which is just bizarre. And he's like, if you win, I let you keep the shopping. If you lose, you pay. I mean, brilliantly written. But I wanted to see more of Lord Alvin, because he was bonkers. He was absolutely bonkers. And anyway, Swan Song. It is an epic novel. It's nearly 1,000 pages long. Now, have you ever heard of Tony Carey, who is a singer from the United States of America? And Planet P Project is the album. And it's called It's a Pink World. Now, Robert was listening to this, and it gave him the inspiration to write the book. And you've got to listen to the album. It's prog rock, right? And the story is within the songs, within the lyrics, and it's just phenomenal. And honestly, when you're listening to this album, you can see where he got his inspiration for to write Swan Song. A lot of people seem to think that he was trying to rip off Stephen King's The Stand, but no, it's nothing like The Stand. It's completely different in every way that could possibly be. And I don't know, I love The Stand. I think The Stand is an epic novel and one of Stephen King's, probably one of his best that he's ever done, but the both should be done on their own merit because they're both equally as good. It's like having a favourite child, right? You can't have a favourite child. You've got to love them both. And I just feel that a lot of people compare Swan Song to Stephen King's The Stand, and it's wrong. You shouldn't. you should, you know, it's like comparing a bicycle and a skateboard. They're completely, I know they're both, vehicles to get you around, but they're both completely different modes of transport. And that's how you should deal with Swan Song and the Stand. Yes, I know one's a virus, that's Stephen King's, and it's the annihilation of the United States. And you've got the devil and God in that, deciding who lives and who dies. And yes, Swan Song is nuclear war, and the devil and God deciding who lives and dies. Yeah, that's the only similarity, but everything else is completely different. The characters are different. The whole premise is different. If you listen to Tony Carey's Planet P project, Pink World, you'll see where Robert McCammon got the idea and wrote Swan Song. And Frank Dearborn, who is part of the Walking Dead, TV show, I think he's been tipped to create the Swan Song universe. And I can't be more happy and more pleased as sponge that he's been picked. Well, going back to getting a copy of Swan Song, that's a challenge all on its own. There's Dark Harvest, and there are only 1,000 of these books in Dark Harvest production. I want to keep saying production, but come on, Sarah, get your words right. Published. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Published. So Dark Harvest published only 1,000 copies of this particular book, and it's the illustrated version of it. And if you can get hold of one of those, you must have very deep pockets, because you will be spending up to £1,000 just to get this book, right? And they are so rare, they hardly ever come up, and there's only 1,000 of them ever printed, right? And they're all numbered, individually numbered. So if you can get yourself hold of a Dark Harvest illustrated copy of Swan Song, you are incredibly rich and incredibly lucky. And if you can get hold of a 1980s copy, again, you are incredibly lucky and must have lots of cash. Because you can, just for the paperback alone, you're looking £500. Now, don't ask me how my husband managed to find one for yours truly, the fairy, but I know it's an ex-library copy from, I want to say Minnesota or Michigan. I don't know. I can't understand how you do your states. It said MI, so I don't know what state that is. And it was an ex-library copy. It has seen better days. It is a little curled on the edging, and the spine has been rolled a little bit because of the amount of times it's been read. However, the artwork on it is still in exceptional condition. It's embossed with the man with the scarlet eye, also the devil. And it's, yes, I know it's slightly worn around the edges. However, it is still a piece of artwork. And it's truly beautiful. But I know he didn't spend 500 on it because it is beat up. I think it cost him £35 plus postage and packaging. But had I held out for one of the better quality ones, I don't think I could have picked one up for less than £500. And £500 for a paperback is a heck of a lot. That's a massive investment. But that's the kind of price you're going to, dearie me, that's the kind of price you're going to be paying if you want a copy from the 1980s. And, excuse me, there we are. And they're only going to be set to go up in price because they're becoming more and more desirable, and there are less of them out there than there were when it was originally published by Pocket Books, but 1985, I think. Yeah, maybe 1986. I was either 9 or 10 when it came out. But truly, an epic story, beautifully written, great plot, fantastic characters, and the one song in it that will scare the ever-loving what's-its out of you is "Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush So Early in the Morning," which, whenever you think of the man with the scarlet eye, that's the song that is going to pop into your head. And it is terrifying. It's a children's nursery song, for goodness sakes. I think somewhere on one of my playlists, I have an audio, if it's still on there. Phone call coming through. Heck, I'll just sort this. There we go. Think we might. Hang on. There we are. Right. I'll have to pop back on in a bit. I'm just going to have to